So 2011 saw me hit the wall of being burnt out. What do you mean my needs? It's all about, you know, my family's needs. Elaine has needs. My 5 children have needs. And I think if you bring kind of psychotherapy with our spirituality,
my heart would open up because of the environment. And then close again.
To learn how to receive kindness, how are we letting in actually the kindness of God?
And I bypass my heart and I go, I'm just going to fix my eyes on God. God is like looking at me and going, no. Elaine, can you clothe yourself with compassion? And you're like, how come I've done all these things for you, God? And why did this not work out the way I thought it would? And that's because he's like, no, this is good news. I'm about to give you an upgrade.
But all it takes is open up the parachute, slow down and get perspective on your landing place, which hopefully will be your home.
Hello, Fintan. And hello, Elaine. Welcome to Cast Studio. Thanks for coming up. And this hanging with you last night was lovely. So today we're going to talk a little bit about your own journey, your context history, and the kind of work you're doing now, and then maybe just your hopes and your dreams for the where that's all going to go in the future. That would be great. So let's start with yourself, Elaine. Where did you grow up? What kind of many brothers and sisters did you have? And I know 1 or 2 of them, I believe.
Yeah, exactly. I have to be careful what I say here now, because you know my brothers. So yeah, maybe I've explained both my parents were Irish.
Right.
But the unusual thing about our family was that my dad was in the Air Force, and he, at a time in Ireland where had a huge recession, he had to leave to get work. So that's what he did. He ended up training, and so
In the RAF?
in the RAF, and ended up, meeting my mom and marrying her, and so we really were a family who grew up in that space, but we moved around a lot, and that was something that was very significant for us. We 22 homes and 16 schools up to the age of 15.
And is your mum English originally?
She's Irish.
She's Irish?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so he went over there, but did he meet her over there?
No, we actually originally met her here, but then she was the one, she had a very adventurous spirit, so she was like, yeah, I'm all in. I don't mind marrying this guy who's going to be moving all over the place.
Okay.
Which was wonderful for us because I have a twin brother and an older brother of 18 months older.
Which one's your twin?
Sean.
Yeah.
And so, so it was just 3 of us, and we were all really close, and that really helped. And like I said, we were very fortunate that we had a mom who really saw all this change in the unknown as something exciting. So we didn't grow up with a fear of what's next, which gave us certain skills, but obviously it also impacted us in other ways too.
Pros and cons to it.
Exactly.
It can be very loose, and then structure can fall away sometimes. Because I'm listening, hearing what you're saying, but I was also distracted myself with thinking who your twin was there for a second. So how many siblings again did you say?
2 brothers.
Just the 2, and right, okay, 3 is grand. So when did your folks then move back to Ireland after the RAF?
So I was turning around 14. My dad had finished, I think, something like 2 years. And he decided that was enough for him, because his real gifting is he's an artist. So you can imagine an artist being in that kind of military style lifestyle. So the cool thing about our parents, they just said to us, guys, if we were to go anywhere, where would you love to live? They were really inviting us into that decision, even though we were young adolescents, and we all we're Ireland. Because we used to come home, we drop back home. We always felt like, this is home.
Some of the roots are here.
Our roots are there. So 14, and but was one of the significant things at that time was just before we moved back, my parents, who up to that point were really nominal Catholics, charismatic renewal at the time in the 70s was coming right through England anyway. And so they were kind of got caught up in that, and as kind of kids as well, we could see the difference that was making to their life. So that all happened, which had a profound impact on our family just before we left and we went to Ireland. So that was quite a significant move, and also a significant time, certainly for all of us, actually, spiritually.
And so did you connect with Nazareth community then? Or were there, because that was part of the renewal, wasn't it? They came in through
Yeah.
the renewal as well.
Yeah. So no, not straight away.
Right.
So there's a group, Campus Crusade.
Yeah.
So we just arrived, and my mom, a very extrovert, outgoing person, was like, I'm going to find my kids, good people here.
Yeah.
She ended up bumping into someone who worked for Campus Crusade. They were running kind of a Bible camp just in the summertime, started going to them. They took us on, they taught us scripture, and really felt, almost caught, I think. Now I look back, caught by God.
Yeah.
As people who didn't know anyone. We didn't know where we belonged. We were just trying to kind of find our feet. And God just caught us in that. But then what ended up happening was, after that, then the next people who kind of were there to catch us was Youth with a Mission.
Okay.
So...
And did your family connect, or was it yourself?
Well, actually, to this Campus Crusade group, because they kind of were connected. It's hard to do, where these...
Why Mom's connected with Crusade? Because they had people coming from different churches.
They all kind of knew each other, yes.
Yeah.
And so there was one time we were just at the back of this kind of very adulty prayer meeting.
Yeah.
We're kind of, as young people, sitting at the back, slagging all the people, singing from the rising of the sun. We were kind of doing all the actions behind them. And there happened to be some kind of, I don't know who it was at the time, but some main person in YWAM was at that prayer meeting and saw all these young people at the back and went, I'm going to go after them. Oh. So, and it was really cool. So they started a youth group, and a lot more people were invited to that. And then that began my journey with Youth with a Mission. So by the time I was like 18.
And did Brian Mahoney connect them?
Yeah, so Brian Mahoney was in our friendship group. Ah. So Brian Mahoney was my twin brother's best friend. So,
right.
Yeah. So, and so he was one of the gang. And so, but what was amazing was at 18, just before I was making that decision, would I go on and go into college and study? Again, God just came in, and Rob Clark was kind of heading YWAM at that time, just said, hey, would you guys like to do a DTS? And that really is where...
What year was that?
That was...
if you were 18, it would have been...
He's good with them.
1985.
No, 80, maybe 87.
Okay.
Yeah, something like that.
Because I joined 91, 92, so I think that's a couple of years after you. Yeah.
So that's... That made a huge difference. Yeah. So you were talking about sort of the spirit or community of Nazareth, that group. Yeah. So just before I left to go on mission with YWAM, where we were going to be going to Germany to train, and then eventually on to the Philippines for me, I was invited to a meal, and that meal there, that's when I met Community of Nazareth for the first time.
Just as you were leaving?
Just as I was leaving.
Okay, so it was a meal that YWAM was hosting or something?
No, it was a meal that my parents had met.
Some people who were in the Nazareth community.
And they, they invited us as a family.
Okay.
And one of the things that caught kind of my attention was that even though I didn't know them, when they heard that I was leaving, some of their young people asked, could they pray with me before I left? And I remember just being really impressed by that. Like,
no fear.
Why do they care? And they came around and they prayed, and that was my connection just before then I went off. And then
this is my own curiosity here. When did the Nazareth community get founded? In what year roughly?
1984.
84. Okay, so it's quite new at that stage. And okay.
Yeah.
Celebrating 40 years actually.
Okay.
This year.
Okay.
Well, they postponed celebrating. 40 years. It was last year. It was the anniversary.
Grand. Well, you hold your story there, because I want to get him up to roughly that same age kind of thing, and then I'll ask about the Philippines and things like that. That's going to be interesting. Where were you born, mate?
Oh my goodness. Well, I was born in a place I haven't been back to since I was a year old.
All right.
So it's an odd one. I was born in Peterborough in England.
Right.
And the reason I was born there was my parents had met in Paris. So my dad from Drumcondra in Dublin left. Right. There's a Youth with a Mission
base there,
connection.
Yeah. Is that what you were too? The base there, yeah?
Yeah.
Good.
So he left Ireland shortly after university here and went over to London, and then knew that he wanted to go to Paris, and he had this idea of going to Africa. He was actually going to go to former Rhodesia, Zimbabwe.
Do what? What did you do?
He's an accountant.
All right.
So he had this notion that he was going to travel, but spend, a few years in London, a few years in Paris, and then end up in Africa, in a land of opportunity. I guess it was Rhodesia in those days. And he got as far as Paris. Well, he did London, and he got as far as Paris, but then met my mother there, who was working for the Australian embassy. And she grew up in London, and she had mixed blood in the sense that she had some French blood.
Right.
And, English mother, but her mother was actually half French, from Guernsey.
All right.
And so she had grown up hearing French and wanted to go to France, and left England when she was 18 and met my father in Paris. So here were these two people. I think it was in a choir church in...
I'm sorry, I missed that. Was he from England or Ireland originally?
Ireland.
He's from Ireland. And was your mum from Ireland originally?
No, she was from England.
England, sorry, I beg your pardon. I'm just trying to track that.
She had this French side of her.
Gotcha.
So France had always been important to her as a young girl, and she wanted to go and live in France. And so first opportunity when she finished school was to go to Paris, and she went there, got a job in the Australian embassy of all places. Met my father singing in a church in the choir. They got married in 65, and the decision was my father, I think, felt that my mother would do well to be in an English-speaking country when I was born. So they moved to, of all places, Peterborough, England.
Right.
And
that's where you're born, right?
born there, and they didn't like it there. So they left pretty much a year and a half after I was born, went to Belgium, where I got a job. So I was there for 2 or 3 years, 2 years, I think it was. And then we ended up in Paris. So as a 0 to 4-year-old, I had lived in England, lived in Belgium, and now moving to France.
Wow.
I suppose that's when I have my first memories of kind of waking up to who am I, and why am I here?
Yeah.
Those deeper questions.
Yeah.
Wondering, oh look, I'm speaking another language when I'm leaving my home, but at home I'm speaking this other. That didn't figure my thoughts, but I must have noticed this is the dynamic.
Yeah.
And so lived in.
And for you, that was normality. You're thinking, I've got to learn a new language here and just adapt. And
kids are like sponges. It's the best time to learn a language is when you're 4.
Yeah.
My mother was teaching me how to read and write in English, but I was in a French speaking school.
Yeah.
And was in that environment for 4 or 5 years until my dad got a job in the EU, in the Common Market, as it was called then, when Ireland joined the Common Market, the European Commission, as it was, the EEC. Back in the day, got a job there because they were looking for Irish people with experience and work experience. And so we moved there in 73 when I was 8, 9, 7, 8. And suddenly was finding myself in another country, another environment, more English speakers, more expatriate type people.
Yeah.
So a bit like Elaine, our stories have this.
You travelled because your dad was an accountant, you travelled because he was RAF, but they were...
That's right.
Yeah.
They were... Was he with a specific company? He could moved around the world, or was he just got different jobs?
With Coca-Cola in Paris, and looking after the finance department there, and moved as an accountant into the EU, and served until he retired. So 2000. So our family were in Belgium for 27 years. My dad was, as in my sisters and myself, moved away from Belgium. We finished school in Belgium.
Right.
We did a baccalaureate.
You spent most of your time where your
all of my growing up years were outside of English-speaking countries. Although, like Elaine, we would fly back to Dublin to see family, and went to college in England.
And many brothers
and
sisters?
2 sisters. Yeah, 7.
And where do you fall?
I'm eldest.
You're the eldest.
I'm the big brother.
Oh, you're a twin.
I'm a twin. Well,
You're second last or last?
Well, I just say I'm the best.
That's the best thing. Okay.
And then, similarly to Elaine, my parents came into, we were churchgoers.
Same time.
And they found their way into a charismatic renewal prayer. My mother was going to prayer groups, and my father was kind of watching my mother go to prayer groups, even though they were both going to churches. My dad, was watching my mum go to extra things. And eventually, you know, he followed her into that world of charismatic renewal. And at the time, there were Americans and lots of different nationalities coming together, and they saw a community seeded similar to the community of Nazareth in Dublin, which started back in, I think it was 77, 76, 77.
And for people outside of Ireland, they don't realise the renewal here had a massive impact. At the big conferences, upwards of some nearly 25,000 were coming to the big stadium gatherings.
Yeah.
So it had a massive, and internationally it was like anywhere between 90 to 120 million. It affected on all different denominations.
Yeah.
It was revival.
Yeah, it was on a very big level. It was kind of bringing fresh
Global
life and wind into the church. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so they got caught into that, and we as children grew up in that environment. So Elaine was talking about, you know, youth work and, you know, being drawn into different groups, including why we were drawn into relationships with other kids that were actually from all over Belgium and all different nationalities, which for me, having the background that I'd had of growing up, it seemed like a very normal thing. But with hindsight, it was quite unusual to have relationships with other Belgian kids, youth that were...
So that was sort of spurred in Belgium too, was it? And it had started more or less the same time as...
So this was probably a few years earlier.
Oh, okay.
77.
Okay, 77, and then Dublin one started a wee bit later.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. But, okay, sorry, I'm just tracking where everybody's connections are.
Yeah. And then, well, to bring it kind of up to where we met. So I had gone after college, went out to America to kind of do a year's service in a kind of a household environment, and came back. And during that time over there, I was deciding, well, where should I live? You know, and I was asking God, you know, where do I need to be? And I felt drawn to go back to Belgium to do some youth work myself. Felt it was important for my sisters, who are a good bit younger than me, to see me come back and just, give myself into working with young people, as well as look for a job. I wanted to be with my family, actually, because my sisters are a good bit younger than me. So just being in relationship with my family, that was important.
And did you have your own personal encounter in and around with your faith in God there? Where were the more meaningful moments for you?
That's a good question, because I think when you're born into, as a 12, 13-year-old, when I say born into, yes, my parents were churchgoers, but I think I saw something as a young teenager that it seemed to somehow make sense. And I felt drawn to, I see what's going on in this environment. I really like it. Now, was that like a conversion now? Does that?
Well, yeah. I know it's a loaded word that in certain contexts.
When I just meant have encounters.
Well, I just remember like myself, like I grew up very just normal cultural Catholic, going to mass and all the rest of it. But there was definitely moments when it was through the youth mission, they did the outreach with YM and our communion all did then. And the follow-up from that, when your heart starts going, God, are you there again? And I know I was told to believe this, but you're asking it for yourself for the first time. Right. Do you know, that kind of thing?
It's when you take ownership.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, and I would say there were several moments during, being a teenager going into 18 that I had invited God into my heart. And I think that's what I'd noticed. My heart was sensitive towards what I was seeing unfold, which was good relationships based on God and Christ. And, I saw how valuable that was in family settings. And even meals, having Lord's Days, as we call them.
Yeah.
And just bringing a family together in prayer. I could see that my heart was sensitive to that. So I think I was open-hearted, and along the way probably made 4 or 5 clear decisions of inviting God into my heart. So.
And I think for us, when you think about the 80s, that was probably the start of the breakdown of family, the nuclear family kind of stuff, and maybe it became more important to try and how do we hold family together. It seems to be struggling. In the 80s and the 90s, things disrupted even more and fragmented even more. So I wondered, even as young people, did we kind of know what family's a safe home place, but it seems to be under pressure or disintegrating, or people are struggling in families at the minute.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we should say it takes a village to raise a kid, that kind of thing, but it also takes like a community to raise a marriage. There seems to be, you need sort of more community of people who can help nourish you in your faith and your development kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think that word home is important because, as a young person, I realized I was finding home especially as displaced kids.
Mm.
So where is home?
Mm.
And so home was some of these experiences of realizing, oh, this is my spiritual home.
Mm-hmm.
I feel at home
Mm-hmm.
in this environment with these people.
Yeah.
And then also realizing that, okay, so we moved on from there, but also having a home inside you that you kind of go, okay, so there's something grounding about having Jesus in my heart that feels like home within me.
Yeah.
And I remember going to college and I felt a bit alone in my faith journey.
Yeah.
But I remember going to church in Canterbury where I went to college and going, this is my decision and I'm finding my home in my faith, yes, by going to this church. And I felt alone, but I felt at home. It's an odd thing, isn't it?
Was there a slight adventure in you still there at that stage? You're going, I'm willing to take this challenge on, kind of thing, even though it's got some
I'd say it was a bit all over the place. It was a real challenging time of like, yeah, I think I want this, but there's other experiences there. So, and it was jumpy, jerky in the sense that although I was at college in one place in Canterbury, my family were in Brussels. I could drive down to Dover, get a ferry across, be home in 6 hours. I was going up to London to connect with people in the Antioch community up there because I've got to know some of them.
I find that's amazing
because this movement of
I'd never really been out of Belfast much. I think we did the odd holidays, summer holidays, but it was always around Ireland. I didn't leave Ireland till I went to IWAM and did my DTS. We did it in Wales and Birmingham, and that was my first time at 21, 22. And so that was for you guys. It was more in your DNA it's okay to go to places. Do you know, kind of thing? Where now I'd like, no, I don't know how to do this, But
I was envious of people who had grown up in one place and had said, because I wanted to. We wondered what it would feel like to sink roots deeper and to have that.
Yeah.
I think eventually, while meeting Elaine at a retreat in Castlewell, and we were talking about it earlier on, that in some ways, talk about home again, but like a sense of coming home, like geographically, of I could have grown up here, but I didn't.
Yeah.
And meeting someone like Elaine, I feel, there's home in who she is because there's a shared set of things that...
There's definitely a kindredness if we know what it's like to travel and move, and that displacement is a great word there.
I'm surprised to meet somebody who had very similar experiences as me. I thought that was, I didn't think I would meet somebody who was living here who had those experiences. So I felt like that was another homecoming of sorts. But then because of no social media, no emails in those days.
Hard to imagine, I know, for some people.
What was life like before then?
Yeah, that initial spark of relationship, which, lit the embers, or lit the fire in our relationship. That took a lot longer than a text message or, that means of connecting and continuing a relationship, because it wasn't until the following year, like a year and a bit, that it became clear that, there was something that was started here and that we might continue. So I wrote a postcard.
Oh, I do remember.
Lick the stamp, stick it on, send it. I remember writing it in pencil and then going, because I kept on changing bits, and then putting it into an envelope so that the postman couldn't read it, defeats the whole purpose of a postcard when you're actually writing sensible things.
Was it one of them young professional retreats she's met on? Sort of young adult kind of retreats, was it?
Yeah, it was.
I
think there were 2 or 3 in Castlewell.
That's right.
And we were at the first one. And, I remember I realized when I'd been invited to go and help that this was a place where young professional...
I might drop a picture in this video here, but of that castle. It's beautiful. It's really
But it was an opportunity to meet people, and when I heard that, I was like, that's not what I signed up for. That's not what I thought I was coming here.
Yeah, we signed up for different reasons.
And then, of course, it became a walking advertisement for the opportunity to meet somebody from a different country, didn't we?
It's weird. There's a website that talks about how certain things change over years, and one of them is how people met. He said most people met through family and church and community kind of thing years ago, but then when you get into the 80s and 90s, and now most young people are meeting online, which is just, for us, it's alien. You had to go to a disco or a pub. You had to meet people where they socialised. That wasn't, you couldn't, and so that cultural pattern is massively changed. So, okay, so you're both young adults, you've known each other. Were you at YWAM as well?
No.
No, you weren't. Okay.
Well, I was aware of YWAM and, connected to people who were, doing DTSs and things like that. So it was
Because
aware of it. Even in Belgium,
all were connected.
even in Belgium, we were connected to it. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to come back to that and follow up on how you sort of met. But you went off to the Philippines with Youth for the Mission.
Yeah, that's right.
So that was your outreach phase, or?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
So those who don't know, Youth for the Mission, so all different denominations go to it. They go to their own. They have a 3-month lecture phase where you're studying God's word and scripture, and then you've got to learn how to apply that and be sort of practical disciples, really. And so they've got lots of different outreaches for evangelistic ones, some mercy ministries and ships and things. And then they're very much very connected to the arts in lots of ways too. There were lots of kind of creativity going on among them.
Performances El Shaddai. There's a connection. I remember having performed El Shaddai.
That's right.
When the Pope visited, and there was
a Toy Maker and Son. There was the other one.
There was a direct connection with YWAM at that time.
Well, they had the 7 mind molars, which people call them different names all the time, but it was the arts, education, politics, and they think, how does the faith go into all these areas of our life? So you went to the Philippines, which is a big. How was that as a culture? I went to the Philippines too with my for me it was a massive cultural shock. Just the body language, and there were so many things you just couldn't take as a point of reference anymore. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I loved it because my history was,
travel.
My mom making travel exciting, making new experiences, new foods, new ways of doing things. So for me, this is just like, whoa, this is really exciting. And not everyone on the team felt that way.
Yeah.
So I thrived, and some people dived, because it's very challenging. It's so different. And so, I just loved it. And I loved all the differences, and just loved trying the food, and, the favorite moments where the Filipino, will be getting you to eat food that normally... Balut,
they love watching you.
And you're just sitting there and you're going, I am not like I'm going to keep face here, this is delicious, as you're crunching into like a little chicken's head, a little chicken head.
I remember
feathers on it.
I was definitely that was your initiation really coming in,
really
wasn't it?
Was. So I felt like, right, I'm in. I've eaten one of those.
Fermented shrimp
on, green mango. Whenever you say that, that's the one that they are really impressed with. Because, they would put the shrimp in big buckets and just let it ferment in the sun. And then, but it's like paste, like it make things lovely and salty and tasty. But then you put that on this really bitter, like green mango.
Yeah.
And, for some reason, when I say I've eaten that, they go, "What?
Yeah,
no way!"
That was my first time having mango and stuff. And
I loved all that. Yeah.
And then just seeing fields of pineapple, mountains of the stuff.
Wonderful new foods to taste and to try. It's really.
Was there much contact back? Because when I went, everybody's going, "How's Niall doing?" Because there was no internet of email. There was no. You'll get a message if something's wrong. Otherwise, take it, everything's right.
You didn't phone people in those days. It was so expensive.
No, we didn't have mobile phones, so contact was through letter.
Yeah.
But I loved that. I would get letters from, my parents, and I would write ones to them, and they were. I've gone. I found one there a few years ago, thinking, wow, like. The things I was expressing in that letter, I don't know if I would have, if I hadn't been writing, I don't know if I'd ever have said that to them. Important things like thank you and I love you, and these are the things, so just, and then back to me, there was a lovely thing that was happening where we were almost, even though we were apart, we were seeing each other and saying, I'm grateful, I'm starting to see now.
It's more reflective.
Yeah, it's much more reflective.
Yeah.
Much more reflective.
I was laughing at the comedian Bishop, whatever it is, talking about mindfulness. He says we all did mindfulness.
Yeah, that's right.
Like, we just get on a bus and sit on a bus.
Yeah,
and that's what you did.
Look out the window.
Looked out the window. You didn't have to you're working all up, know. But now you're trying to remove distractions
because there's so much coming at you, So
so it's lovely that
that was it. In you, they've been cultivated a real adventure spirit. Like, it's okay to explore the world, and it's a good thing, And then you were there for how long?
In the Philippines, a year and a half.
Okay, so you learned the language at that stage, I would have thought.
Certain, yeah,
Like-
Taglish.
Taglish, yeah.
So, a bit of Tagalog and English as well, combined together. So even if you were listening into people's conversations, you'd have a good idea what they were talking about.
Yeah.
They were, kind of throwing
So
all
they do
these
that
English words
themselves a
around.
little bit.
Taglish.
Yeah.
Yes, no, I'm
Yeah.
saying they invented that, not
Okay.
me.
Yeah.
So that's, you might have experienced it too. So
Well,
it's
but
very-
they were always very impressed when anybody learned the language because you'd
Yes.
gone, because short term would have been like 2 weeks to a couple of months.
Yes, yeah.
But if you go over a year, you've gone through the culture shock and you're now starting to get a sense of the whole culture. And then language is helping form that even more. So you go a lot deeper into the culture when you're doing that. So I know you and Brian, when he came back, when I went, Brian joined me a month later and he was like fluent,
That's right, yeah.
And they were like, they loved it because they, so I was like, yeah, it's really good. It's really good, yeah.
The
So-
Irish Filipinos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's okay. So a year and a half. And then just came back. It was time up. So how were you living then? How were you funding yourself and people just supporting you? As
Yeah,
you
just family supporting me out there. I mean, I came back and I knew that she saw it
Well,
happening.
you came back, and I think you came back with the clothes that you were wearing, and your parents or somebody.
Oh,
had
it's
thrown away
hilarious.
your
Yeah, I came
clothes.
back and, the group of friends that I was training with in our DTS in Germany, I had like a couple of really close friends. We all went together. It's just great crack.
Yeah.
Amazing experience. But before I left to go on mission to the Philippines, I knew that I had all the wrong clothes. And so I left all my clothes with them. And I said, look, when I get back from the Philippines, you can wear them if you want, whatever. So, obviously, a year and a half later, I'd let them know through letter, I'm on my way home, girls. And then they were like,
Please return the clothes.
we will gather your clothes. My clothes were all over the place. I had a big, huge suitcase and I just gave it to them. And so they gathered it all. And a friend of mine, God bless her, gathered them all together in black bags and left them in the hallway for my collection. And her sister thought they were for the bin, the bin men, and put them all in the bin. And so when I came home, I had no clothes. I had to wear my mother's clothes for a month.
And everything you wore in the Philippines was so hot. You got
Really light clothes in your bag in Ireland.
I
Freezing.
came back, literally, it was one tiny, but I love that feeling. I remember just having one small bag on my back and going, there's something so freeing about that. And I often think of that moment when I had so little. I was like, I felt so happy, and much more, it was easier to connect to God without the distraction of all that. And then coming home, then finding out I didn't have anything anyway,
Yeah.
and
Well, that's
so,
massive because it doesn't. Certain things don't have a hold on you. Then
That's
I mean,
right.
you're actually free to care about all sorts of things that are
If you
probably
looked
more
at my
important.
wardrobe today, you'd be thinking something different.
Well, that's cool. That's very cool. So then you came back, and then did you connect in the community or what?
So when I came back, I actually thought that, look, I'll come back, I'll earn some money, and I know that whatever I've experienced out here, going short term is great. There's definitely a place for that. But if I was going to go back, it was going to be long term. It was going to be like a 10-year commitment. It was going to be me going back, whether it was to the Philippines or somewhere, but really like throwing myself full-heartedly into
I remember.
just being single.
Yeah,
So
I
when
remember.
I came back, my main focus was earning money and to start praying and listening. Where, did God want me really just to be single for him? So I could just give my whole life. So when we talked about meeting each other in Castlemellon, I was in the middle of that very kind of like, I'm going to live my life for God completely.
And God's like, hello.
And I'm going to go in, and there's this retreat coming up, and I'll go, great, because I'm going to go on that retreat, and that is where I'm going to hear from God, whether I'm going to be single, which is just what I knew, that being single, of course, would free my life completely up to live for him. And, and so that's why I was there, which was hilarious because I imagined this retreat being something very different than what it was. Because, of course, when I arrived at this retreat, there was things like canoeing and volleyball on the beach. I thought I'd be sitting kind of like beside a lake and listening and praying. I was doing all the opposite things, like hanging out with all these great people. And of course, in that moment, then kind of met this guy
Bumped into your man, yeah.
Who's happened to lead your group?
he happened to be leading.
Well, it's nice because I remember that time where your heart's free.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, Lord, what do you want? What do you want with my heart?
Yeah.
I can do this for you. I can. Well, you know, and it's like, do you want to send me here? What do you want me to do? Yeah.
It's a wonderful kind of, those moments are wonderful, aren't they? And I know that even when I look back at my time in the Philippines, what had me in that space where I was able to do that, and probably of all the things I can remember about my time in the Philippines, was that I was just very fortunate to meet this older woman who ended up being my mentor. And she had this wonderful relationship with Jesus. I got mentored into how does somebody else live a very intimate, connected life with Jesus, and what does that look like? And that had a profound impact on me, which is the reason why when I came back and I said, whatever she had is what I want.
Yeah.
So as much as there is that energy that we have, which is, we're supposed to have that energy, you know, when, you know, where we want to go and we want to like save the world. I was just very fortunate that I got an experience of that, but also this deeper experience of what it's really all about, which I didn't quite understand at the time, but it was ended up being a huge gift to me when I came back. And that's the reason why I was like, right, I'm sold out for you, God.
Yeah.
And I had actually seen and experienced somebody else who was living this way, that wasn't just all about the activity. It was a deeper, intimate relationship with God.
I'm thinking about the Paul verse where it says, you know, I'm happy with little or I'm happy with a lot. Do you know that kind of, you know, that it can go anyway, do you know, that kind of thing. And my prayer in them days used to be, there was to be, I don't want to be proverb, don't make me so poor that I'll curse you, and so wealthy that I'll forget you. Do you know that kind of thing? I don't need you. Do you know that kind of thing? So but in that place where he's got you and he's saying, right, your heart's free, it's met yourself, and you're obviously praying about future and where to go, and some of that's coming together.
Something special about that age, isn't there? You've got that freedom as you're describing it, and you know, you were saying earlier on, you know, did you have moments where you're encountering, you know, these are milestones, and actually, as you're describing it, you know, when we were that age, there was a maturity on us, or we were actively seeking God in a way that was profound when you think about it, because we were trying to listen and give ourselves to what he was calling us into. And so Elaine, I know the story. You surrendered yourself fully and wholeheartedly to go and do his work wherever he placed you. And then he kind of brings me into the equation, into your life where, and I had to do some surrendering, particularly as I went back to Belgium and we were in two different localities and we started a relationship. And at one point, and I know I'm jumping the gun and taking you into
that's
how we actually, you know, got engaged was, I had been trying to get a job in Ireland and didn't realize how hard it was to go against, you know, it's like a salmon going back upstream. Everybody's leaving still in those days, in the late 80s, early 90s, to look for work.
Dublin was tough.
Yeah, and so I didn't realize when I was applying for jobs I was going against that stream, because I had been working a couple of years. And I had this moment where I was crying out to God, and I remember exactly where I was. I was in these woods in Belgium, and I lay down in these leaves, and I looked up, and I asked God, where are you in all of this? I'm trying my hardest to make things move and happen job-wise, but where are you? Like, how come you're not allowing that to land? And he asked me a question. I really felt like it was dropped that question into my heart. Well, what do you want? You know, and you know the way Jesus asked in the Bible, you kind of hear these scriptures of like, why did he ask such an obvious question? So I knew it was him.
Yeah.
In that moment, what do you want? And I said, I want to, and I kind of was able to get it out. I want to be with Elaine. I think she's the one. I want to marry her. And the answer I kind of popped into my head again. He spoke and said, why don't you focus on that? And there was this surrender at, you know, in your mid-20s. Mid-20s, you kind of think you're mature in that moment. When you look back and you go, I was only 25.
Yeah.
To kind of go, okay, so maybe I need to trust in faith to move that forward
Yeah.
and to leave all the self-reliance of looking for a job and maybe the things will. So I prioritized stepping into it, and that's where we went in that July 91 of, I don't have a job in Ireland. You may have to come and live in Belgium. I don't know.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until the November that I got the job, and we got married in January. All the plans had to be made without knowing. And so I think those kind of things in our lives are the maturing of our walk with God, where
And the confidence is trust. It's going to work out. If I trust in Him, He'll open
Less
the door.
fear, don't we, when we're that age? I think
Yeah.
the freedom
there is something around surrendering
Mm-hmm.
at that point in our developmental stage, even of the brain, and there's a lot less fear.
Yeah.
And so surrendering, almost is easier. I think it's sometimes harder when we get older. We do collect more fears. And I think so that for that reason, I think it's really interesting what you're saying. I sometimes look back and go, my goodness, sometimes I feel more like I felt more mature back then. But I think what I'm picking up is that I had less fear, but because as we get older, and
Less fear and less responsibility.
it's the two combined.
Yeah, because you've got your children,
freedom.
and you're going,
Yes.
okay, it's not just me and Fintan. Everything's bigger as far as the stakes are higher for everybody.
Yeah.
And the maturity to hold that all in its tensions and go, how can I be at peace when I can see all the challenges? Jimmy Nolan said to me in a guys retreat a year or two back, it was one of them things where he just spat it out. So somewhere along the way I swapped faith for fear.
That can happen.
Yeah. And it can overwhelm you.
Yeah.
And you go, but it's the thorns, that kind of thing. And that you go, but God, what about that? I said, okay, you need to get your eyes back on me because that's gonna cause you a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's the Corey Ten Boom one? If you looked out, you'll be distressed. If you look in, you'll be depressed. If you look at me, you'll be at rest.
Very good.
This is a great one.
Yeah.
So you're trying to rest in them places and trusting, okay, Lord, I'll do this bit. And so your hearts are connected and you're falling for each other. It's lovely. It's great stuff, isn't it? And then you're okay, where do you want us to go? And he's also had all this family experience and travel. Then you're now bringing this to your own life and family at this stage. So you just got married. When did you just get married?
92.
92. Okay, so I just came to Dublin then. So you just got married when I came to Dublin. I think
We should have Blue Hut or something. You shouldn't get married in a wee.
sort of hut church, did you?
No,
I'm trying to think that I show up at your.
no, I think that was somebody's wedding in.
Denise, was it?
Maybe I remember going to one of some of these communities, and I'm thinking, okay, I don't know all these guys, but anyone's like,
Just remember
"There's a wedding, we're all going to the party."
There were a few people from up here that gate crashed.
We were not invited, but they all just
There are no
came
people
to
from Belfast who gate crashed who are probably watching this podcast.
Yeah, I believe it. I can believe it. So,
Okay, that's a big journey.
let me. You can help me do the bridge in this here. At the minute, you are doing stuff with John Eldredge and Wild at Heart, and you're both counsellors, psychotherapists. So, how did you go from? How did you go from that? What's that journey? Who wants to pick that up?
I think if I condense it in a summarized form and then you add to expand it, but, the job situation that I did land involved quite a lot of travel. Initially, I worked for telecom and I was going out in the early 90s to Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Lesotho, I was bouncing around, bringing, expertise from a particular telecom company to developing telecom companies and developing countries.
Okay.
We're doing funded work in that respect. And, that seemed like a good fit. And after about 5 years, I felt like, there's probably going to be a work transition to something that has me move up to middle management in some other company. And got invited to go to Germany. So we moved to Germany for 3 years, 3.5 years with 2 children. So we had 2 girls between 92 and 96, 97. We were in Germany for 3 years. And I suppose, because we had that in our background of moving, it seemed like, yeah, here's a natural progression. We're going to spend some time in Germany, don't know how long. That's okay.
Yeah, that's not a problem.
We found ourselves coming back in 2000, having had another daughter in Germany.
Mm-hmm.
We came back. We went with 2 daughters, came back with 3. And we then had 2 more children in 2004 and 2006, another girl and a boy.
Mm-hmm.
And all that, building our own, little environment, particularly in Germany, I think there's something happened there for us where we established who we are in a new and different way because we disconnected it from everything that was familiar, family around us all the time, community of people who are on a faith journey. That all changed, and we had to go and look for new people who's our family in Germany. That kind of.
You have to be very intentional about what you're doing. Yeah.
It was a particularly challenging time where Elaine was, without friends, without a church, I was connected
because there was a language barrier too.
Language to learn,
culture. Yeah.
And here I was just bouncing around doing what I was doing previous in a corporate.
And your kids are all under 5. That's a busy time for the mum. Like you're just like, yeah.
3 kids where I was just continuing, travel and a lot of things.
Yeah.
And so when we came back to Ireland, had 2 more children, and my work journey continued with me traveling quite a lot. And so 2011 saw me hit the wall of being burnt out, and not really as much as I knew my heart. And had been to, we'll come back to it, being in men's ministry and knowing my own heart, as much as I hadn't done much work on myself to know and see signs of burnout.
Yeah.
Sounds strange.
No, because you're
I'd say you're just been very productive and providing. Think, okay, I've got a family, I've got to provide.
Exactly.
This is the things I just need to do it well so that's secure.
So when I hit a wall in 2011, and the wall looked like, oh, there's anger in me, and I don't know where it's coming from.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got a bit of help, it was kind of the questions that were being asked of me. One of them in particular was, well, what are your needs? And I could feel the anger kind of rising up of, what do you mean my needs? It's all about, my family's needs. Elaine has needs. My 5 children have needs. There's corporate needs. There's needs from the services that I've given myself to, community and otherwise. And so I seem to be meeting everybody else's needs, and you're asking me what my needs are? Seriously?
Yeah.
And that it's kind of like that got met with, well, maybe we should start there. And I kind of went, oh, I see where this is going, because I don't know my needs.
Yeah.
And, enter Elaine with her knowing that we should probably go and explore this counseling world of just to get an understanding. So Elaine started doing these, foundational courses in psychotherapy and inviting me in to do a diploma. So it came from a need that obviously was there that I hadn't realized about myself, but then piqued a curiosity in Elaine, which you, I think, always had.
Yeah.
So I know I've said a lot there because, I've just taken us through from 92 to...
Brilliant. No, that's a very good, very well summarised, actually, because you're trying to say that's that self-awareness that happened, that, okay, I'm hitting burnout here, I don't even know how this happened. And then you have to step out of it and go, okay, I've just been very functional, but I need to get back to, people always talk about work-life balance, but it has to be some type of balance in that. You're just...
And that's the main cause of us stepping into psychotherapy. Wind it back to, we were just about to leave Germany when somebody puts a book into our hands called The Sacred Romance, John Eldredge's first book.
Yep.
And something awoke in us in the reading. It's the only book that at that stage, 7 years into marriage, 8 years into marriage, that we were pulling off each other. Are you on that chapter already? I thought we were sharing that.
Yeah.
And something awoke of, we knew something about our hearts and our faith journey and Jesus and the way that we had listened to him at different milestones as we've shared. But something peaked in us that kind of went, there's more. There is more to this life. And so that had been sewn in way before where I got to in the story. So there was this curiosity, I think, in both of us of there's more to the heart of a man and the heart of a woman and what God is going after in
and I'm trying to have a vocabulary for that was discovered a vocabulary for it because you don't even have words for it at the start.
Yeah.
Because I remember I did read John's book Journey of Desire, and I loved it. It was a wee devotional one he did,
Right, yeah.
and he did that. You know, the broken-hearted, a heart of gold, intimacy, heart to heart, and he explains all the different ways we use the lexicon of heart in our culture. And you go, oh, I'm not using that, or I'm not aware that that's a part of my language. We hear it in songs, we hear it in other things, but we can totally abandon our heart sometimes and just be quiet. I need to do this, that kind of thing. Yeah, and as you say, we see people burning out and relationships falling apart because people aren't looking after themselves well.
Yeah, and there's that whole internal life that I think we were living well as Christians. And, you know, from the outside and just how much we were trying to give into service and children and, you know, seeing connections with other kids. And so that youth work and like-hearted parents and like-hearted families.
Yeah.
And yet, if you don't bring attention to what's going on inside you in your internal life, something is missing. And I think the seed was sown of like, there's something missing. There's more to our lives in relation to a union with God and a journey and a walk with Him.
Deeper.
That He is so interested in us at that deep level that somehow we were skimming along. So then when the deeper questions come of, you know, well, what's going on in here as I hit the wall? Oh, okay.
And the Spirit of God's kind of going, good, we can have this conversation now. You're this season in life. We need to explore this.
Finally.
Yeah.
We're getting to the deeper matters here.
Yeah.
Because you're modelling so much, you're modelling stuff for your kids, you're creating all the right boundaries that they're safe and they're being nurtured and you know you've got them before you can let them loose, you know, kind of things. So they have all the right stuff and built in them, you know. And
I don't think our experience is unusual in that. I think young people are having families and children, you know, in the busyness of life and the demands that are out there, that it doesn't lend itself to, you know, maybe getting to certain places until you hit the wall. And then you kind of have this need for an emotionally healthy spirituality, which, you know.
Well, I remember reading, I forget the name, like Dan, the guy who wrote Emotional Intelligence, the famous book. I remember reading it and going, like, all he said at the end of it was, the best we can explain as far as neuroscience goes is emotional literacy. And he says, because people are talking about it, it's a very trendy emotional intelligence versus IQ. But he says, but it's that vocabulary of the soul language that kind of, I don't have words to express my anger, my frustration, I don't have it. I just have feelings, you know, that kind of thing. And so learning them words, learning the heart's needs, it's actually liberating. It's actually very liberating because you don't realise sometimes that your heart's slightly in a prison if it doesn't know how to express itself in a way or know how to get nurtured when it's feeling lonely, insecure, whatever it might be feeling, you know. And some people are very nervous of approaching emotions because they seem so messy. I don't want to follow that. Can we just keep it all very cerebral, you know, kind of thing? Okay, so you're in that space. You want to go a lot deeper because you realise I'm not functioning well unless I understand this.
And bridging that EQ, SI, spiritual intelligence, you know, and actually seeing that in our humanity, there are, you know, it's a holistic, we are body, mind, spirit, and we need to bring attention to all aspects, and He's most interested in all aspects. And so that's what I think, as we were taken back to the entry point of a seed being sown of there's more to our hearts thought possible, lent itself to an awareness and being awake to, okay, so 2011 hitting a wall feels like a milestone to us entering into curiosity around if there's an integration and a restoration of the heart that is taking place, and He is very interested in that, then maybe there's a pathway, you can see it retrospectively very clearly, bridging us into our way of approaching our relationships, our desire for belonging and community, because we have a history of not quite belonging. Where's our home?
But also you see other people's hearts now famished or imprisoned and trapped or hardened, and you're going, now I see it in me. It's like it opens up your eyes.
Yeah, and as you understand your own heart, you're drawn to
seeing the hearts of others.
Something that I can offer, and I think that was in counseling and understanding psychotherapy and kind of realizing, oh, okay, there's something here because we've understood it for ourselves in a deeper way that we can offer others in their journey of recovery of their hearts.
Yeah.
And I think if you bring kind of psychotherapy with our spirituality and actually the deeper meaning and understanding that it is for the sake of the healing and integration of our broken hearts.
Yeah.
Isaiah 61.
Yeah.
What did Jesus declare in Luke 4 as his ministry was to come for the brokenhearted?
See, I stand at the door of your heart.
The captives free.
Yeah, let me in. Let me in. Yeah.
And the parts of us that have been held captive that we hadn't realized we're still holding captive.
Yeah.
And he's coming after these unconverted places still in our like 30s, 40s, 50s.
Yeah. And it's great that he isn't eternal in that sense, because there's so much more to learn. That venture doesn't really stop.
No.
He's just too big, you know.
That's right.
But it creates I love the song by Rain Collective. One of the lyrics in their song was, "Your truth is my wide open space." Yeah. As it doesn't hinder you. It's not about trapping you, but it's actually freedom.
That's right.
Do you know the thing?
Yeah.
And knowing that, you know, boundaries is good for the heart, letting good people in that can nurture you, keeping the bad out, that kind of stuff. And then understanding all the things that are controlling you, good and bad, and going, hold on, that's not good for me or my family or whatever, do you know, that kind of thing. Yeah, so that integration, as you're saying there, between the heart, emotional literacy, and our spirituality, and that relationship of love that's bigger than all of us, but it's the very thing that holds everything together, kind of thing. So you're going through that, your job, hitting the wall, learning all this, pushed into explore your internal world, understand the voice you've been ignoring, your needs, all that kind of stuff. Did that change for you quickly?
I think I feel like with hindsight, God tricked me into a path, that narrow path towards understanding things in a different way. I think my heart had for many years understood things through faith, through a lens of, you know, a faith journey. But what was opening up to me was more a deeper understanding of my humanity. And I think sometimes in our faith journey, depending on which Christian community and, you know, that we experience our faith, that somehow the human context, our humanity kind of gets left a little bit behind. That my mental health or my brokenness or my understanding of my woundedness or, you know, the things that trigger me aren't always deeply understood, or like the path to that. It's kind of almost we spiritually bypass what's going on inside of me to actually go and help others and love others and serve others and bring others into their faith, you know. So we kind of go and do those things, but we miss ourselves in the process. So when you hit a wall, you go and have a look at that, and especially when you get invited by somebody dear to you who cares for you to go and maybe have a look at this. I thought I was allowing myself to go into more personal development and understanding of self. But in the second year of doing a diploma, you then get invited to go and practice that as a student counselor. And what I realized in that was, okay, so here's an opportunity that the Father's given me in developing my own understanding of my heart in a deeper way, and feeling like there's integration and a more wholehearted way of doing life, to then be able to offer that to others. And I think that was also the bridge to deepening.
And you know what's weird? And this is where I suppose spiritual abuse can happen in the church. Because I remember getting the CD from Dr. Henry Cloud on 12 Christian beliefs that will drive you crazy. And God's about service, so you should serve. Doesn't care what it costs you, doesn't care if it burns you out. Just serve. You're not serving. You're not duty. Yeah. And so you end up with these. Well, that's true. You should serve. That's God. It should lead you to want and care. But it doesn't. It's a half truth, and with the devil's brilliant at just going, but I'm gonna make that work against you too. You know, if that's your head go.
Deeper encounter.
So trying to capture a half truth when there's some truth in it, so it doesn't burn you out, is a tricky one. Because there's a nuance with that. Like going deeper, you're saying, paying attention to them nuances and go, I see the trick here.
Well, Elaine sometimes talks about, you know, that you turn back to yourself. It's a hard thing to do because we want to move away from discomfort. And yet, unless we turn back to the things that are actually happening within us that he wants to surface for the good of our heart and our closeness to him, that unless we do that U-turn, we're kind of missing out fuller life. And therefore we have found ourselves over the years working not only on our own stories and on that part of it, but also bringing it to others through psychotherapy and through a ministry.
It's weird. And a couple of things are just going through my head as you're saying, what happens when God moves you to the next level of your own maturity? You're able to have capacity for more, whether it's your children or whether it's community and outreach, and you're thinking it's not just this love isn't just for me, it's for others. And I was doing a youth mission in Birmingham. It was my DTS outreach. I remember at some level understanding how much God loved people and how much he loved their hearts, that kind of thing, and telling doing the kind of communication that would help them be aware of that need a little bit. But I still didn't have much of the vocabulary as far as emotional literacy goes, or a spiritual language for some of that. But I knew whatever I was sharing about his love, they were desperate for. Because I remember doing I went into one class, we do like a 10-minute wee plug and invite them all at lunchtime to come to a big assembly. And not only did they came, all the teachers came, and it wasn't just like they're here to make sure the kids aren't messing around. And after we'd finished sharing about God's love for their hearts, they just stood there like, don't stop, please don't stop. And I didn't know what to do with it. I went, Lord, I see it, I see the need. But the detail of what's going on in that hall right now, I don't know that. But I know it's standing there, please feed me more. Whatever that is you're saying, tell me more about it. I'm not going deeper into that because it affects, from the church perspective, evangelism. It affects if you can speak to that heart and speak to its need with skill. Because, as you say, people can have a position, but they might not have the skill to actually minister, even if they have that position. Do you know what I mean?
I think there's a lot of things set against that. You mentioned kind of spiritual abuse. The things that are said, we can come into a deeper understanding of our faith, but then it seems that there's what's going on in the world, there's stuff going on in our family, and it kind of can hold us back and be disappointed in some ways that God isn't showing up. And so, there's the flesh, the world, and the devil, that we have to contend with all of that. And therefore, John Eldredge talks about, going through a Narnia door. First you go through the first Narnia door, realizing, oh, I have a heart and all these things seem to be going on, and I need to seem to take care of it better than I have been maybe. But then, we can still be taken out by all the stuff that's going on around us, and a sense of what you were saying about obedience and duty, that we get caught up in, and Peter Scazzaro speaks about this in emotional, spiritual, emotionally healthy spirituality of hitting this wall within our journey. And I think when we hit that and we want to go deeper again, it's perhaps then, my hitting of a wall got us to consider more of what God is doing through his desire to have people closer to him and have this healing. And I mean, psychotherapy, it's a very useful thing to be trained in, but we believe that Jesus is the integrating force in the universe. He is the one that can bring about this healing.
We used to have it a lot in our vernacular back in maybe Celtic spirituality, but people used to say, how are you in yourself?
That's right.
Do you know what I mean? Isn't that in your head? I mean, and then here, how are you doing? And people going, oh, I'm fine. And if they can deal with the intimacy and all the feelings that go with the intimacy, do you know what I mean?
Even that expression, how's the body? People say, how are you in your body? How are you in your entirety?
Yeah. And I was thinking, I remember when I did my youth work course and we did attachment theory for the first time. And that blew me away because I didn't realize, when people talk about abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, and you realize the biggest is neglect.
That's right.
And then we were studying what's going on in foster care. Most of the teen pregnancies were happening in foster homes because these kids didn't have anybody. That home, you're talking about that bonding, that connection, that secure place. And so they attached whatever will take them, even if it's not a good person. And they could be predatory with that. And then so they were getting used and abused. And they didn't know how to put boundaries around that because their need was so great. They were, I don't care, I'll take bad love.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Watch out where you attach your umbilical cord,
Yeah.
was somebody said, because
Yeah.
people are, you will try to connect and attach,
Totally.
even if it's something that's not useful.
And with families breaking down, communities, even churches all disintegrating, and all them pillars we used to have as supports are going through a massive upheaval. We were probably just saying about it. It's pruning, but it can be a good pruning. At the end of it, we're all going to be healthier and better and can nurture better going forward, So
You're trying to say something.
Was I?
Yeah. I sense your...
No. I think that's the piece that we don't quite understand how nurturing God is. And that, we do set out, like the way I would describe my revelation of that God had a lot more than what I realized was that, when God touches our heart, it's almost like that little drop of love that an experience that we have with him can almost keep us going for years. That's how powerful these experiences we can have with God.
Totally.
And I often explain my heart, and what ended up happening to it was, I kind of use my hands to do that. And I go, when I was 11 and I was queuing up to get prayed with by a priest in a Catholic church, and my mum just whispered in my ear, "You just need to invite Jesus in." And went up, got prayed with, and in that moment, where I described it, my little heart just opened up, and I just felt this love come in. And then what happens then is that the heart doesn't stay open. The heart kind of closes up again. It has to, because we can't live like this. It's too kind of vulnerable. And then what happens then is, you go, and that love then has you seeking him. So you want that love again. You want more of it. And then as a young person, you kind of then at that point went to, like, I would go to events, and in those events, I'd have these experiences again. My heart would open up because of the environment. And then close again. And then 6 months later, I do so. And this is the beginning of the soul learning to open up, to receive this nurturing, that attachment love that you're talking about. To be seen, known, loved. To know that someone has your back. The ultimate longings of the heart.
And you're in control of that gate, of that door, to open it. Yes.
Right.
Oh, you're good. That's nurturing. This is safe. This is good. Come on in.
That's right.
Oh, no, not too good. Let's just close that.
So, and often that little drop of love can keep us going for many years. So I would describe it the soul, that like this is God and this is my soul. And he's willing to wait right beside my little soul for many years. And every so often I'll feel safe, and it's the right environment. And he's okay with this. I'll just get another little touch of love. But really at the end of the day, that journey, what it's supposed to be like, that eventually he starts teaching you that serving him, knowing more about him, all the different things that we do, a lot of doing for God, gaining, is not the same as really knowing and being loved by him. It's just, that's where he wants to bring us all, eventually. And his patience is incredible around that. And often what he has to do is he has to, at some point, actually strip away even all the busyness of the Christian life. So, and that's how I ended up really understanding that his goal is to really teach us to open our souls like this. So we can actually at some point be almost like living, in an openness where he's here. I opening my soul on a much more regular basis to him, hopefully daily. And so I can start, my heart and him can start living more in union together. That's his goal.
And
so it's and we don't quite get that, but he's okay with that.
And I'm hearing that he comes skipping over the mountain. He comes, that the lover of your soul. He's excited to come and have that union with you. And it's very much, we know it in our marriage relationships, that love, that intimacy, but to have God be that lover to the parts which our spouse can't even reach, it's so much deeper, that kind of thing. Or you might use your spouse as part of that, But
what's tricky is like that, you were talking about those young women and just that the need they have to be seen, known, loved, to have someone who they feel can protect them.
Yeah.
The reality is that's for every one of us, no matter whether we've experienced trauma or not.
Yeah.
The human soul is designed to long for these things. And the issue is like we'll often bring those very deep longings and we will bring them into our churches and into our communities and we put them on people.
Yeah.
And that's the mistake we make. And God can see this. This is where it starts to go really wrong.
Yeah.
Because even though we are surrounded by good people, great kind of evangelistic programs, at the end of the day, our hearts are really made for Him and Him alone. They do not rest until they rest on Him alone.
Totally.
And so we then bring these restless hearts, which are very famished because we haven't really learned yet until we become so famished. And yet we're surrounded by Christian activity and knowledge till one day we wake up and we find ourselves hitting a wall. And he gives us that opportunity to look in the heart, like, you know, which happened for me, where one day I was, you know, with a team of women running this fantastic, you know, retreat for women. And I was putting up a slide because I was the one giving the presentation. And it was John 7, you know, in scripture, you know, it says, anyone, you know, who, you know, turns to me, I will be like a river flowing up from within them.
Yeah.
And God just whispered in that moment, this is how he eventually he teaches us. He just said, Elaine, do you feel those springs of living water within you? As I was putting up this slide to give a teaching on it. and this is the moment.
And what was your answer?
Well, my answer was I ignored the Spirit speaking to me in the moment. I went, just kind of, you know, when you just like, let's just hear that.
Yeah.
But I'm so glad that I just stopped and I actually turned to that voice within me. And I said, do I feel the living waters kind of flowing up from within me? And this is me turning to my own soul, actually looking at the reality of what was happening or what I was feeling inside. And I answered Jesus in that moment. And I said, no, I don't. I'm talking about it. I'm walking the walk.
I'm teaching.
I'm teaching about it. And so it is quite, and this is
hard to drop it down. Yeah.
How to drop it down.
Yeah.
And there is this gap between, and it's like, I love Jesus because he's so kind. Like he knows that we don't quite get this. We don't get the union when we first set off. And so for many years, it can be like for myself where, you know, your soul's like this and God's like this and you're doing all these great things for him. But it's like there comes
something's missing.
Something, you know, is missing. And what has helped me understand is like, you know, when you first receive that touch of love, it's almost like in that moment, what it's also like, it really is receiving a gift of faith. For some reason you believe in the unseen and you don't know why. And that keeps you going. But then he knows that there's going to be, and we don't realize it at the time, is that what we actually deeply believe through faith is that there's a distance what we believe and actually what we experience in our life. I didn't understand that. And so the actual journey of into the more is where God's going, right. I know you believe. I know you believe in me. And I know you know absolutely loads about me. And I know you're even teaching and all that. But I want to come and I want to start working the distance between what you believe and what you're actually experiencing in your heart. And so if we allow him in, if we end up being really honest with ourselves, which is why I love the Wild at Heart message when I first heard it, because no one in my Christian world had ever really given me permission to ask myself how I feel.
Yeah, sometimes that
check in with your heart.
Yeah.
You know, how are you feeling right now? And I'm thinking, oh my God, no one has ever asked me how I'm really feeling. They call it heart monitoring.
Yeah.
And what they were doing there in Wild at Heart, they were teaching people, look, it's really important to listen to your heart. Because if you're not listening to your heart, which actually comes, the emotions, like we were talking before, is the emotions are the voice of the heart.
Yeah.
And this is where it all starts kind of going a little bit wrong, because as we know, people have a lot of different attitudes and, would be very negative towards emotion, because emotion actually can feel very out of control.
Yeah.
But if we kind of just suppress all that, which we're taught to do.
Yeah, it's gonna,
Pack it all away.
There's that,
The reality is,
push it down.
those longings and the desire to be seen, known, loved, we actually then bring, and this is the biggest part, we then bring that into our Christian communities. And we are looking, and this is why there's so much hurt in our churches, because we've brought our longings to something that's counterfeit. These people will never be able to meet these longings for us to be seen. And we then put it into what we do, what people think about us in our churches, and what we...
And it wrecks our marriage. If we put it all on our spouse, they end up going, I can't carry that. That's you have to bring out the...
So it's kind of... gap is there, we don't realize.
And verses are jumping through my head as you're just talking. I'm thinking, we talk about that water. Can you feel the springs coming up? And I'm thinking about Jesus and the woman at the well. And he says, I could give you a drink.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be thirsty anymore. Do you know that kind of thing? And her need, she would go to this guy and he would use her. No, that's not the right guy. And so I still have this need to connect. And he'd go to another guy. Yeah. And she'd jump from guy to guy. And she's going, no, I want to give you a drink. You don't take all them substitutes that, but I will fill that up. I'll meet that need. And then you'll be able to evaluate people properly and meet the right person, but not from a place of need, from a place of desire. Because your heart's in a good place and it's secure, that kind of thing. So that was jumping out in my head and heart when you were saying that. The Mary and Martha, obviously, he's going, she chose the right thing. She sat at my feet. And I was thinking about, how did you get that journey from your head to your heart?
Yeah.
Because there is a contemplation and reflection there, which sometimes doesn't always flow well with charismatic, or like, oh, just praise. And go, stop the praise a second, open up your heart. I know you love me, but let's just go there, Yeah,
and that term, I can't remember where it came from, but the spiritual bypass is that somehow we can get locked into an understanding and interpretation that things will be okay if we go into worship, things will be okay if I practice my faith in this way. And somehow there's a letting go, but there's also a self-resilience or self-reliance, of needing to feel like we depend on ourselves. Yeah. If we do this well, it's coming back to the duty and obedience. If we do this really, really well, we'll be... But why is it that we keep coming up? I'm doing all these things, I'm involved in these good things, but something inside me still feels like... And it feels like I'm the one who's at fault. There's something wrong with me, that I'm not experiencing the fullness of it. And therefore it's insatiable. It's the water. We're looking for something that seems to be beyond. And I think it's that reframing of actually what's calling to that is an attention to our hearts. What are the emotions that we're feeling that we're lacking in? Because actually Jesus wants to meet those needs, but somehow we're going, it's okay. I can hold my breath.
Urban Manis.
I can hold my breath.
Urban Manis is this. How do you bring people to God without the church getting in the way? Now, and I don't mean church as in the real sense of God's body really ministering. I mean church in the sense of individuals who've got their own issues and maybe hinder the love of God coming in, because I'm thinking about moralistic type things where people are so focused on the sin, you don't see the heart. And when God gets at the heart, he deals with the sin.
Because look how we treat our own hearts. Look how we treat our own hearts. We are not in a posture of being able to be kind to ourselves. And if we're not doing that U-turn that Elaine uses, that expression, this U-turn back to our own hearts in some kind of kindness, to learn how to receive kindness, how are we letting in actually the kindness of God? Because we've already we know how bad we are. So we're stuck in that posture of shame and guilt. And I'm not blaming. This is not about dissing church or, it's more, what have we learned how to have a posture towards our young hearts that picked up a lot of messages as we were growing up displaced about what are we actually learning to say about ourselves because of our displacement, for example. That
you said, we prayed at the start before this, about we're 12, we're 16, we're 18, we're all them stages at the same time.
All the ages we've ever been.
And there's times some of that development's arrested, or it's just stuck in a feeling and emotion and can't get out of it, and it doesn't know how to let its heart come to that.
No, I know Paul talks about, to clothe ourselves in compassion. And I've always understood that as like, I'm the one who needs to be really compassionate towards other people, especially those people that might find difficult or something. And then I realize, actually, what Paul meant by that is like, we need to be doing that for ourselves first before we can go really do that properly for anyone.
Yeah.
So what would that look like on a given day? Because I always kind of go, it's great to have these conversations that we're having now, but what does that look like on a Monday morning?
Brilliant. Yeah, yeah.
So on the Monday morning, I wake up, and if I'm going to bypass my heart, that's going to be a problem. Because what God wants is, or where he shows up, he can only show up in the reality of who I am. And so if I'm ignoring my reality, which could be on that Monday morning, actually feeling maybe a lot of anxiety about something that I maybe need to do that afternoon, and I bypass my heart and I go, I'm just going to fix my eyes on God. God is like looking at me going, no. Elaine, can you clothe yourself with compassion? Take a U-turn towards your own heart. Listen to it. What is your heart saying today? So I just pause, I stop, and I'm going to get to Jesus. I'm going to fix my eyes. But first of all, in his kindness, he said, I need you to turn to yourself. Because if I'm not involved, I have to be involved to invite him in to my heart. So I'm the one who has to kind of go, right, I'm choosing to listen to my heart today. And as I listen to it, I'm going, my goodness, I feel so anxious this morning. And Jesus is going, great, well done. Yeah. Now put on compassion. And you're like, so I turn towards my heart and go, oh my goodness, my soul is really, really anxious. And now what I do is, instead of burying it, covering it over with a false self or with coping mechanisms, or putting that anxiety on other people by being, an awful version of myself to my kids, Jesus says, now invite me into that. Let's start the day like that. And so this is where you're starting to get, here's my soul. I feel the anxiety. I want to turn to it in compassion. Why would I have not done that years ago? Because guess what? It's a very uncomfortable thing to allow yourself to really feel what's going on in your heart on a given day. We want to run away from it. The ego does not like raw emotion.
No, it doesn't, because we might cry.
Yeah.
We actually might say, I am sad.
Yeah.
And I didn't know I was sad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is where it's this again, go back to the attachment love. He is a fathering and mothering heart towards our souls. He's not interested in sacrifice. So he's not interested that I'm going to go and do a great mission and a women's retreat and this, that, and the other. Like he loves that I do that I'm doing that service for him. But he's a fatherly heart. His priority is how my little anxious soul, or my soul that is sad that morning, that's where he wants to meet me first. And this we don't realize his love. That we don't prioritize it because we don't love ourselves enough. He prioritizes it. So all heaven celebrates basically when I wake up and I'm willing to be honest. And it does require, I tell you what it requires, humility. I always kind of go like the journey of the heart. It's just like, we do not need to go like to talks about humility, because when you start going down and start to be real with Jesus about what you find in your heart, and then you have this amazing thing that happens where you sit with that feeling and you have this moment where you say, Jesus, come into my anxiety. Jesus, come into my grief today. And something in that moment supernaturally happens. And what happens is that attachment love, where you're now getting, the supernatural love of Jesus coming into this fusion with my little human anxious heart on that day. And God is like, yes, now go on with your day.
And it's contagious.
It is.
I might come back from maybe reflective retreats or my kids love me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I've got my heart restored. Do you know what I mean? Or Jesus saying, okay, the crowds are always there. You've been doing all that, but you've been angry, bitter, and you're tired.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Come away and restore your soul.
Come away.
And then when I come back, there's my peaceful dad. There's my nice dad. I can approach him. I get a hug from him. You know?
Because you've done something with your heart. And coming back to and adding to what you're saying there is that we are all the ages we've ever been. And so, sometimes those emotions that you're talking about, like I'm anxious. Okay, so, what age of me is showing up that I know this is a theme, this anxiety that I'm feeling here that's the same kind of anxiety that I've actually had in relation to whatever it is, belonging or whatever it is, age 5, 7, 9, whatever.
Patterns in your life, yeah.
And so what's emerging then is, and if you're open to it, and this is, you know, like there are practices, and in fact, plug for the book, Experience Jesus, really, John's new book that was just launched
Great.
at the beginning of the month. There's a practice in there which is very real of kind of noticing that you're feeling that way. So I'm feeling sad rather than I am sad. I notice that I'm feeling sad. And what age possibly am I that's showing up as I sit maybe in a mindfulness meditation, listening to some soft music? What age of me is showing up? Maybe there's more than one age that is holding that feeling. And then Jesus knocks at the door and the ice cream van has shown up.
He's excited to see you. Sorry, we're in a unit here, and there's
not only is Jesus knocking at the door, but the ice cream man's playing his music here. But yeah, will I open the door as Jesus knocks to invite him in this posture that I've now got a bit of perspective of my young self, and I can invite Jesus in to come and speak to that young part.
How long can it take? I'm thinking about how you bring your heart and the obstacles to your heart coming.
Do you know what I mean? As you're saying that, I'm going, what's the actual practice, the daily stuff? And you're just saying about that coming to it. And I'm thinking, what's stopping people coming to that? Because for me, my retreats, it takes me 3 days to stop the noise.
Oh, yeah.
Depending on how mad you've been running, as you're running and working and you hit the wall and burn out. If you're not aware of any of that.
It's so built into us to protect those parts and to push it down that it is very hard for us to open up and actually go, what we're talking here, it's a way of being and living.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
That allows this to happen more regularly. But this is a life. We're not done in one go.
And you can trust him.
And then the themes are going, okay, I recognize this theme. This keeps on coming up. And I was... Jesus gave me a vision one day of the way that he sees this. And so, you know, the idea of a scroll, and he opened up the scroll, and our life is like a scroll, you know, and our story is written.
Yeah.
And so I saw this scroll, and I saw it almost like illuminate. So rather than just be a 2D rolled out scroll, like on the table here with beautiful writing, it was 3D. And it's actually a bit like this room here, where what was laid over the 2D was like this beautiful blue, and there were ups and downs, and what he was doing was he was leaning in and he was looking at it, and he was interested in every part of my scroll, all the ages I've ever been.
The hairs in your head, every detail.
Yeah. And I see my life, as I think we all do, rolling out this way, as in the past, my scroll, the forward of my scroll, I'm here in the present moment. I see it like that. We probably see it humanly in our human lifetime. But then he did this thing, he turned it, and he showed me how he sees my scroll, which is from the side, looking at it, and he sees all of it. I am one in all the ages that I've ever been, all the parts of me. And then I noticed he's doing it to everybody at the same time. He's looking all through the scrolls from this direction.
He sees the beginning and the end. He sees it in context.
And then I realized, if we can be in a posture with ourselves of his eternal perspective on us, that he actually can walk into any part of our stories anytime that we will open the door for a healing of that part that couldn't understand that at that age. And I suppose that's where our journey into counseling, psychotherapy, combined with a deeper kind of understanding of the treasure is the heart. And the battle for the heart is, we're born into a battle between good and evil. And here's the context of our story in that bigger context. And of course, they're fighting over the human heart, God and his enemy. And unfortunately, we take lessons and we close up our heart.
And every movie we see
is telling that story really in some shape, and we come alive in the stories, don't we, of the movies.
And then hearts that are damaged, hearts that are like the clip. Probably, I don't know if John uses one, but the clip in Braveheart when Mel Gibson pulls the hood off Robert de Bruce and realizes he betrayed him, and the look in his face, like his heart, I've just been betrayed by my brother. We were meant to be together in this battle. Do you know what I mean?
And then when he goes back to his dad, he says, I seen it, I took it from him, and I grabbed it out of him. He said, I'm never going to be on the wrong side again. I shouldn't have done that to him.
Yeah.
Do you know that kind of thing?
One of my favorite clips in that movie is it's incredible how just a little scene kind of sits in your heart and kind of opens your heart in that moment in a scene, because you kind of, it wakens something in you. The one that I remember is William Wallace is going back and forth doing his rousing speech for the Scots to stay in battle, but then he goes over to his little fellowship of 3 or 4 guys, and the Irish guy Stephen says, fine speech, now what do we do? You know, and he says, well, I'm going to go and pick a fight. And Stephen says, well, what do we do? And Mel Gibson looks at him, William Wallace looks at him and says, just be yourselves, and winks at him. And I saw that, oh my goodness, that's what we're asked to, that's what the invitation of Christ is, to be ourselves. It's a difficult thing to really understand who that is and what that is and how we have a part to play. But the invitation is to discover that. And it's just in that moment in a movie that I realized that's what Jesus is going after. He's saying to you and me, all of us, just be yourself.
And when you get a taste,
Freedom. We had it when we were 25.
When you get a taste,
go back to
when you get a taste of that, when you get a taste of being, you know, fully yourself and feeling fully alive, that's what he's looking for. Because then you want more of that, and you're like, well, how do I, you know, how can I, you know, practice, you know, kind of, I suppose in some ways I would say it. The posture of my heart to receive more of that. And so that's where the practices come in. Again, this can all sound very like...
No, because the experience, which I think this book's getting at, how do you experience it? It's not a head knowledge.
It's not.
It is it's felt.
It's a felt knowledge.
Yes.
So when you start realizing that, when you kind of like, oh my goodness, you know, you start noticing more and more, when am I actually living from my heart in this kind of like feeling fully alive, and when am I not? And that's part of the journey where I'm not today. Okay, I am right now, and it's just so wonderful, you know. And now God's going, great. Now, you know, like, chase this. This is worth chasing. And so, you know, when I'm working with clients who are Christian, they'll often say, you know, how do I like get that, Elaine? How do I get more of that? And I'll say to them, you know, well, I have this expression. I say to myself, look, hey, you know, I'm as good as my last trigger, you know. So that's one way of, like, when you're feeling triggered, being 1 minute you're okay, and then next minute you really don't feel okay. If you were to kind of focus and give more attention to those moments where you don't feel okay, they are fantastic opportunities to allow God to come into your heart and start, you know, creating that union into those places where you can start having this experience of really being more fully yourself. And again, this is the God who loves us and knows us. Like, that's his joy. His joy is to see us really fully alive in ourselves. You know, I don't know what we think about him, but sometimes we think he's like
like he
wants to kill all that or something, and we have to conversion ourselves, which are like this really holy kind of pious version, and it's just not.
Remember in our YWAM school, one of the big talks in YWAM and DTS was the character and the nature of God. Is how do you see him? If you see him as a threat,
that's right.
If you see him and he says, you don't know him as something, you taste and see that it's good. And you go, I don't even know if I can trust him. I don't trust anybody else. How am I going to trust him? Because your heart is so protected.
That's right.
Yeah. And it is protected for valid reasons.
Yes.
John 10:10.
Yes.
The enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy, but I have come that you may have life to the full. We want to skip over 10:10a, steal, kill, and destroy, because we just want life to the full. But there's a reason that we protect our hearts, is because we do know that. But we're not. Why are we not experiencing more of life to the full, whatever that is?
And I think it's like that control thing you're talking about. People never realize you've got a gate. God doesn't barge in. I stand at the door in the heart and I'm not kicking this door open and coming in and telling you, come on, let me in, and you'll see that I'm good.
And when you get that, you start going, you know, I remember God saying, he did like a year's training with me. He just said, you know, Elaine, every morning you wake up, when you put your feet on the ground, I want you to say, you know, okay, I'm willing to feel any emotion that arises in me today. I'm going to turn towards it. I'm not going to turn away, and I'm going to invite you in there, Jesus. It was like a practice. And so I always kind of go, you know, if you we talked about, again, our souls being cleansed, you know, and that's like the self-protective thing. But, you know, I think the soul is like a muscle, and if we were able to see it like that, like it's like going to the gym. He was basically kind of going, we're going to go to kind of like, we're going to kind of up the game in you learning how to open your heart. So what he was teaching me to do in that year, he was like, wake up in the morning, surprise, surprise. Every morning, no matter who you are, your soul is generally closed when you wake. That's why often we have the worst thoughts in the morning. And so then what he was teaching me is like, okay, now open the soul, close it again. Open it, close it. And so you're starting to learn, oh my goodness, I'm not afraid anymore. Because this is the biggest issue. When we are afraid of what we actually find inside on any given day. Of course we're running from it. And this is the thing.
And that's them scripts. Oh, you're a failure. You're this. You're that. You're that. And you go, hold on, I got to say that's not from God.
That's right.
Yeah.
The saints point to, you know, a way of living that seems kind of like, well, they were the saints. They were mystics. And so John talks in this book about being ordinary mystics. He starts with saying, with love and gratitude to my fellowship of ordinary mystics around the world. And there's some, I can't remember whose quote it is, but, you know, the Christian of the future will be a mystic or you won't be Christian at all. And so there's this invitation to step into a way of life that actually I've noticed it's reconnected me with, you talked about Celtic spirituality. You know, just going back to St. Patrick's breastplate, you know, and you saying, getting up in the morning, I bind to myself today the power of the incarnation of Christ with that of his baptism, the power of the crucifixion with that of his burial, the power of the resurrection with the ascension, the power, you know, starting your day with this realization as, you know, I arise today, the strength of Christ, you know, it's making what was relevant in the 400s, 500s, 600s, and alive, come back to me in my experience of the depth of spirituality in our land, in this island, and how it spread, you know, from here up into Scotland with Columkill, St. Columba, in Iona, you know, this...
But they tasted that and they couldn't keep it to themselves. That's the pearl of great price. I can't keep this to myself.
Yes, they understood something. I've often wondered the austerity you see, you know, Skellig Michael, and, you know, you kind of go, why did they cut themselves off? Well, they were experiencing something of the wildness of God and bringing it actually and understanding it, living it. That wasn't just a settlement for like 20, 60 years, 2 generations. It's hundreds of years of Glendalough, your place you love, and the communities around that lived there. They were living out of a passion of faith. It's not austerity. It's I used to misunderstand that of, well, if we cut ourselves off and banish ourselves to, you know, green martyrdom, it means something of a disconnection. Well, yes, partly a disconnection, like the Desert Fathers had to run away even in those days from what society was doing, but it's actually finding something of the truth of God in community with each other, with like-hearted people. And then it becomes, oh, people are now coming, as they did to Glendalough, like this university of the lands of saints and scholars, literally St. Kevin and what they built there.
And coming back to that freedom, and I'll use the brave heart because there's so much rich stuff in it. I says, and as like warrior poets, they found their freedom.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the fighter, which is wonderful, do you know what I mean? Not against flesh and blood in that sense, but
exactly
against these lies that go after your heart and try and destroy it.
That's right.
Yeah.
It opens up the spiritual realm.
Yeah.
And again, you know, Wild at Heart, John talks about, you know, us being like amphibians, that, you know, we're meant to live in the spiritual realm and see things in the spiritual realm as well as being in our reality here as we know it. But the two live closely together. And like a frog, you know, if we only live in the land, we're not going to survive. We need to be dipping in here, but we can't stay in here all the time. That's not what we were called to be. We'd have to be on the land.
Jesus led in by the Spirit into the desert, but came out in power of the Holy Spirit.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean? That's even our Lord did that. He knew he had to connect with his Father in that place. You know.
Yeah.
And that disconnecting in that way, going for that union and exercising that, you know, actual invitation into the true gospel message, into that true kind of attachment love, which is what Jesus was doing in the desert, you know, you know, and in that place where it's 40 days. So you got the 40 days, and, you know, at the end of the 40 days, people think actually the devil showed up and was tempting him actually at his weakest point. But actually, those 40 days, it was Jesus was at full strength. Because it's almost like those 40 days represent that when we turn away from distraction, when we turn away from our control, when we turn away from whatever we are doing that we think is going to bring us some kind of like peace and, you know, or kind of nourish our deep longings, when we turn away from those things and actually spend time with Jesus at the center of what's really going on inside us, that's when we can then kind of leave that little, like, you know, small, like, for example, I use, you know, the pause app. And so I would use that as like my spiritual gym to make
Stop
sure.
there. Pause app. If you haven't heard of it, get the pause app. This is that stop moment. This is your wee retreat. We used to have the Angelus back in the days to stop from your work.
That's it.
Stop from your busyness and just listen to your heart and invite God into it.
So I'll do that. I'll often do that between clients. So, you know, I'll see a client and then I just wave them goodbye. I've got usually half an hour or whatever between. And what I'll often do is just sit down and I just kind of write 2 minutes. And in those, well, no, 1 minute pause, but it was 1, 3, and 1, 3. I think it's 5 and 10. And so, depending on what time I have, I'm always astonished that even when I press on the 1 minute pause, that I'll just kind of
inhale
everyone and everything to Jesus. So what I'm doing is saying, "Give me your burdens, throw them to me." And then now go down into the heart and just simply say, "And love me there, Elaine. Jesus, I love you." I come out after 1 minute a new woman.
Isn't that, a day in your courts is like 1,000 elsewhere. It can be that quick.
Yeah.
And
that's how much he loves me.
Because,
you know, I wouldn't have loved, you know, before I wouldn't have loved myself enough to say that, you know, my finite soul cannot go for 24 hours without dipping into this well of living water that he's just waiting. Saying, I want to refill you. I want to refill you. And if you want to do that every hour, every half an hour with me, we definitely have orphan mindsets. We actually do think we are supposed to be doing this on our own. And he's like, no, I so much want to do this with you. Guess where I'm going to make my home? It's the wildest thing. He makes his home in the center of our hearts. And he sits there waiting, or stands, or for many years for us to go down there, just to turn to him so he can embrace and infuse us with everything that we need for anything that's going on in our day.
The pause app is a great place to start.
It's a great
practical tool. Totally.
It's very accessible, and then you just and it's a practice. So it's not always,
because if we don't, if we do that in kind of a rhythm of, I'm noticing that I'm coming up for air by doing this practice. It's so helpful, because the tendency is to, if I'm not sure if I really want to sit on my own with myself for too long. Because what we notice about the way that we are with ourselves is, I seem to be speaking pretty negatively about myself. So it does take taking the lid off to allowing the breath of God in, to sit in a place of receiving, to actually open ourselves to, well, do you see sometimes what I notice I'm saying to myself, or the narrative, like, what's the story I'm telling myself? You know?
Saying that script and rewriting that script, letting the Lord help you rewrite that script.
Yeah.
You know, when you hear all that negative stuff, and it's very good. I mean, I'm hearing Christopher West, he does the theology of the body stuff, but when he talks about, he makes a big fan of Les Mis, and that meaning the miserable ones, these broken. And when that movie came out and she sings, they killed the dream in me. I had a dream, and somehow the world has just killed it in her, robbed her. She became this. You see her in the movie. She's just hers cut. She's family. She's just, her life is ruined, starts killed and destroyed, totally. And our lives should be bringing to that broken place, and ourselves first, as you're saying. but be able to restore dreams in people's hearts again, which they think they can't even dream anymore.
And the gentleness of the priest or the bishop, with Jean Valjean in Les Mis, when he comes to stay with him, and then just the forgiveness and he pulls back the hood and he says, "I made you." When I can't remember the line, but you've been redeemed, basically.
Well, when you were saying,
See who you are.
Nature and character, God, would he forgive me? Yes, he will forgive you. We can't forgive ourselves sometimes. It's the problem. We won't let him in that gate and go, no, you wouldn't like what you see in here, the script says.
Yeah, the disbelief of Jean Valjean when he's been receiving that message of kindness, because he doesn't believe that about himself and who he is. You've forgotten who you are, I think he says.
But it's like Jesus, when you read through, the New Testament, you see that he was always moving towards the broken. He was always moving towards the untouchable. Like the lepers. There's a beautiful song called Leper. It's I don't know who
Deeper. It's Ry Cox, I think.
Yeah, that sounds familiar. I love
By the pool of the,
yeah. And so kind of understanding that, that Jesus was someone who was even able to touch people with diseases with his own hands, and he was not afraid. And so I think that's the message we need to hear, is that when we start living in union with God from the heart, he really has to give us a lot of courage to do that. He's like, don't be afraid to touch the untouchable parts of your heart, which can seem at times, as we know, as much as we might talk about a little bit of anxiety or a bit of sadness, we know that there's deeper sometimes and darker things even in there, which we're so ashamed of. And Jesus was saying, look, if you could just even slightly turn towards that and admit the reality of that in your soul, would you be brave enough like me to move towards the untouchable parts of things that you experience in your own heart, that we wouldn't dare to, or even we'd be scared to tell people these things are going on within us. But as we do that, we start experiencing that, as soon as we do that, the way he rushes in with this love, is, and this is what sets us free. And the reality is, certainly for us in our work, we would know that unless we are going there ourselves as therapists. So I am practicing this every day, because I cannot bring people where I have not been myself.
Love that. A leader can only lead somebody as far as they've gone.
Absolutely.
If you can't lead your internal world, how are you going to ask them to lead their internal world?
And sometimes, when I'm sitting with a client and I know that there's this moment that happens when they dare to open up something they're really, really struggling with within their own heart. And my job is not to fix that. My job is to give them enough courage, and all I have to do is bring my eyes of compassion. And I know when I have eyes of compassion, because do you know what? I've been there. I've been to the darker places in my own heart. I can only have compassion when I feel that compassion. Something supernatural happens in the room. God uses my compassion,
and they feel it.
They actually feel it, and
they feel God.
There's something actually that happens supernaturally for a healing for that person. And sometimes I'm not saying anything. And I think that's, and this deliverance of their soul can happen just through my compassionate heart, looking with my heart at their pain. I'm not afraid. I'm not telling them that
you're collaborating in the work of Jesus for that.
That's
heart.
it. And that's because he came to visit me. I've allowed. But the biggest issue and the biggest block is that we are the ones have to open the door. Because he is a gentleman. He respects us completely. And I love that about him. He is so fussy about our autonomy. We have to choose. And
I love that, because you're going to be discovered, this guy loves you. This guy thinks you're great. Do you know what I mean? We know, because we've meditated on a lot of these scriptures over the years, and when Jesus looks at Jerusalem and weeps with compassion, how I long to gather you in my arms like a mother hen gathers its chicks. Like, nobody will hurt you. I will make sure you're safe. Do you know what I mean? And that's the God we're talking about. Not some type of abusive, neglectful, desperate state. It's one who's going to come into this like water that you haven't drank in a long time, you're thirsty for.
And that there's something very young, I think, in what we're talking about there. So I would say possibly for a period of 20 years, it feels like God has been working in our lives to heal, integrate young parts of us, we're all the ages we've ever been kind of thing. But then I think there's a maturing that takes place in the Christian life that we kind of don't just get stuck on, oh, I see, it still seemed to be needing to be fixed. Yeah. That is an ongoing thing that will always be there. I think there'll always be things. But we're also invited into a deeper maturity. And what's that? That's kind of going, okay, so I know that you're with me in your collaboration in the healing of me. You want that. But you're also inviting me in maturity to go and partner with you.
Partnership.
In your mission field, in your bringing in your kingdom. And that's adventure, and that's like taking risk with God. But that's a maturity that isn't just stuck in, I'm stuck in.
Yeah, so that's how you love your kids from that maturity, how you love your family in that maturity, and wider and wider.
And there's something about the love of God in the way that he loves our humanity, that he wants us to do it, and he blesses us to go and be independent, like we are with our own children. And there's a collaboration that he then does. He's been doing it since forever, because all the stories in the Bible of Ezekiel, and there's a selfie out there. It looks like a selfie, it's AI, but of Ezekiel, and he looks like he's taking a selfie. He's got all these bones behind him. And there he is with this expression, with his, his dress, the way his attire for the right attire for those times. And you kind of see in this face, this person who existed, who was called to partner with God, with the dry bones, and the breath of God into that. It's the collaboration with people.
Yeah, it's funny.
So it's a maturity.
We started off talking about, how we kind of, we're so mission orientated when we're young, and we kind of give our hearts to God, and so we do know what this collaboration looks like. We've been there, done that when we're 18, 19, 20, because I'm like, no, I feel I have. Yeah. It's not new for me, but the difference, I'm going, so what's the difference between now, between 19 and 58, what's the difference now? And the difference is, it's like, I went out there to conquer the world, to be in that, to collaborate with him, to really step into my irreplaceable role.
At 21.
And he allowed me to do that. Because he set the desires in my heart, and I am driven by that. He's crazy, actually. I just thought I'd say that. He knows that this is also going to bring me down, and where it's going to bring me down is actually down into my heart eventually. Because it's not like I'm not working from my heart. I am actually working from the desires, but there's things that he needs to do, and it often use the things we're doing for the kingdom to kind of hit these walls, for our vision to fall apart, to have 15 years of, hard work, and it's
confusion and distraction at that point.
Yeah. And you're like, how come I've done all these things for you, God? And why did this not work out the way I thought it would? And that's because he's like, no, this is good news. I'm about to give you an upgrade, because the disappointments that we have in mission, in our churches, with people, with pains, with hurts, with the pain we cause each other, there's a point we get to where we end up sitting almost like in our hearts. We can't move. And we're sitting there and we're waiting. And usually it's almost like we're at a point where am I going to continue with God or not? And that's the moment where he's like, great, now you're down in your heart.
Now that I have you sitting.
which is, unfortunately, often he needs to use pain. Where the pain is so bad that we can't run away from our own hearts. Yeah. And that's where he's going, okay, no, this is good news. I'm actually going, this is where you're going to now learn union with me. Because why? Because we find ourselves in places that we cannot actually get out of. We're in so much pain sometimes. And then what we do, we go, no, this is great. Then you start learning, oh my goodness, it's about.
So that pain could be God knocking at your heart.
Absolutely.
Saying, okay, this is the indicator.
Yeah.
Now, rather than saying that as a problem, look at me.
Yeah. So it's an upgrade, I always say to my no, you're about to get an upgrade. And you always go, really? I go, oh no, this is not bad news. This is the best news ever, because now you're experiencing this union in God in the darkest, weakest places of yourself. And you know what he's gonna raise you up, and he's gonna send you out again, and it's gonna be very different. So you're gonna partner with him. And what is it gonna feel like when you partner with him, when you're in union with God? It's gonna feel light. it's going to feel easy, and it's going to feel like,
What do you mean his yoke is light?
Yeah. So the example would be a couple of weeks ago
it's also the lover. Remember that the spirit and the bride say come. Like our relationship first because we love each other. And our kids see it and find incredible comfort from that. They go, that's what I want. Do you know what I mean?
So that union, for example, would be a couple of weeks ago, I was kind of giving some talks at a women's retreat. And each time I finished, each talk, I had this experience which I thought, wow, I can't believe God has done this. Instead of at the end of a talk saying to myself, okay, out of 10, what would you give yourself? Which usually about, oh God, that was about 5, instead, what I naturally went to in my heart, I go, I love being me. Which can sound like a very narcissistic thing, but God is like, no, this is what union with me does. You are now back out on the mission field, Elaine. You're partnering with me, and you're actually loving who you are with me, and that's that's the bet, and that's how much. I suppose that's how much he loves.
That's when he says, "This is the who that I love in you." Yeah,
and I love it. I'm going to try and bring this to just the sort of closing stage of some of this conversation, because I'm conscious we've got friends coming later, so we need to get to that place. So when I think about landing this, there's a lot of practicals in there. I think the pause app is a practical. Read that book if you need to digest it more. I'm thinking about how do you pause, how do you stop, whether it's in the daily routine and devotional. I'm thinking about if you've been running for so long and you've got to come away, I got to do some soul searching, some get in touch with this again. Maybe it's retreats, maybe it's some courses, programs, Wild at Heart, different ones you can go and do that start to they're help and create that safe place for you just to be held while you're working that out. And if it's quite chronic, it might involve counselling, psychotherapy, as well as prayer and that inner life you're trying to get at. There's a lot of stuff in that.
Something's coming to me as you say that. There's a lot of things that you can do. And, getting up in the morning, having habits, and even how you put yourself to bed, and how you put a nervous horse to bed is how you'll find him in the morning. If you don't calm something in the evening, this is how you'll find yourself in the morning. So your practice is before you go to bed, and I need to work on that, right? But I'm also thinking one of the helpful ways just to ask yourself a question about what do I need to do is, what am I avoiding? Like, what am I avoiding? Why am I avoiding it about myself? And then give yourself to, a pause and what comes up in the pause. So it's almost like the uncomfortable feeling that you may be avoiding because it's uncomfortable. Well, just open the door to that even. Sit with yourself.
And I got them from doing different workshops, believe it or not, on pornography, and one of the ones was HALT. Why people run into these addictions. It says, hungry, angry, lonely, tired. Can you ask your heart, how are you doing? I'm isolated, I'm lonely. Then you need connection. That's your need. How are you going to meet that? And you have this lovely conversation that goes on.
I love that where you can, develop that conversation with your own soul. Isn't that wonderful? You can kind of, how are you doing? It's personifying our souls is very helpful as well. You're able to speak to it and listen to it. And it's like you, connecting with your heart.
Well, I remember Tom Hanks getting interviewed. He said, you're in amazing movies, Tom Hanks. He said, well, it's all the same thing. It's loneliness and isolation. Wow. Look at Gump. See him, nobody understands him. Whether it's Private Ryan trying to get back to his home. Do you know that kind of thing? And he says, you look at the movies, he just leads with this isolation, this loneliness, to cast away, to whatever it might be. Do you know what I mean? And it's all the time just coming back to this home, this place, our hearts. This hungry heart that needs.
There you go. And I'm picturing, you can do skydiving and you're hurtling down the busyness of life, your speed, but all it takes is open up the parachute, slow down and get perspective on your landing place, which hopefully will be your home. And you can come back to a resting place in safety rather than hurtling down.
That's good. And so obviously I'm hoping if people are listening, they can see, maybe they're listening to their own heart, or they're listening to us in this. God, that's a bit like me. Maybe I do need some more in-depth work. Maybe I've let some practices go that I need to rediscover again and bring back, because you can lose it if you don't tend your garden, in the sense of your heart,
Yeah, and if there's anybody listening that, obviously they know how to get hold of you, but we're Fintan at wildartheart.org and Elaine's Elaine at wildartheart.org.
.org, not .com, once a flower shop, .org.
But if there's resources, if there's anything from a resource point of view, conversations or direction pointing you towards something, we would love to help in that way.
Yeah.
That'd be great. Great. We'll finish with a prayer, maybe, and I'm going to plug this book again. He's got a lot of great books. Wild Heart's great. The Divine Romance, Secret Romance,
Sacred
Romance, and then there was
there's the Wild Heart book.
Journey of Desires, every week devotion. Waking the Dead. Waking the Dead's great. Actually, I love Waking the Dead. Yeah. Yeah, that was a great one.
That's the
I get one. So, and these are about the wildness, the free place, the dreams again, the adventure, the lover, all these things.
Fathered by God. Stages in a man's life.
And getting familiar with that whole in our world again. So maybe as we were praying for our families, our culture, and in this world, and people's hearts who are desperate and attaching to the wrong things.
Yeah.
And that we just bring that to God now, maybe.
Father, Jesus, Holy Spirit, thank you for how you've made us, who you've made us to be. And I pray that through our sharing, through the things that you have illuminated in our lives and the way that you've shone your light into our hearts, that it gives testimony to you and your the love that you have for us, each of us. And just thank you for the way that you have a heart to heal, to heal the brokenhearted, to set the captives free, that the blind would see and the deaf would hear. Just your desire to see every person work from and be in their wholehearted version. And so I pray that you would touch those places that are hurting, that are wounded, and that are in need of you, and that each person would be able to get a perspective on that for themselves, and to be able to then invite you, as we know that you stand at the door and you're ready to come into any part of our story. Thank you for your ministry to each and every heart.
All right, thank you. When we see the prodigal son who was lost for a long time, or the prodigal daughter, and just turned their eyes back towards their father, he came running towards them, threw his arms around them and threw a party and had a meal. And that's what you want for them and their hearts, that they can rest with you. They can be restored with you. And from there, that living water can start to flow again.
Lord, I just thank you that the story of the human heart is to be seen and to be known and to be loved by you. And that we have a God who truly loves us in the deepest places of our heart. that he sees us and that he knows us and he loves us. And he really, really, really does want the best for us. And I just thank you, Lord, that for everything we're talking about today, that this is the motivation of your heart towards us. And your goal is to see us thrive. To thrive even on this side of the kingdom in the way that you have planned for us to thrive. Because we are deeply loved by you. I just thank you so much for that, Lord.
I just pray for miracle in people's hearts today. Work a miracle in their hearts today. You meet our need for self-worth. You meet our need for love.
Mm-hmm.
But you also meet our need for the miraculous. You can change things that we don't believe can change.
And just as we know that we're in training for reigning, that you would, as we open our hearts for healing and more restoration, and the more that you have for us, because of what's happened to us and because of plans being thwarted, because of your enemy, God, that you are actually drawing us through that integration and healing into plans to partner with you for the reigning, for the gift of being given what you always had for us, to reign with you in eternity. And so we are grateful that you are, we are in process, that we are always going deeper, but for the purpose of all that you have for us in eternity. We thank you for Jesus, who's the integrating force of the universe, that he heals and restores and knows it all. He sees it all. Amen.
Amen. Nice. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's fun.